Numbers don't lie. People do. It started with a $40 discrepancy in the electric bill. My wife plotted my death for the payout, but I just served her papers that took every dime she had. I pulled into the driveway at 11:47 p.m., 6 days of Toledo still clinging to my clothes. Primer dust. Fast food grease. The particular exhaustion that settles into your bones after matching 17 different shades of silver for a fleet account that couldn't make up their mind. The porch light was off. Lisa always leaves it on. 6 years together, 4 married, and she's never once forgotten. I sat there in the dark cab, engine ticking as it cooled, watching the house I'd been paying down for 3 years. The grass needed cutting. A package sat by the door, edges warped from rain that must have hit Tuesday or Wednesday. Something felt wrong. I couldn't name it, just this pressure behind my eyes, like when you know a color's off by half a shade but can't identify which way it's leaning. Too blue? Too green? You stare at it long enough, you stop trusting your own perception. I grabbed my duffel, headed inside. The mail stack on the kitchen counter was 6 days thick. I sorted through it standing there in my work boots, too tired to take them off. Junk. Junk. Credit card offer with my name spelled wrong. Utility bill. I tore it open. $264. I blinked. Read it again. Pulled up the previous bills on my phone. $131, $118, $134. Consistent. Predictable. I know this house's rhythms like I know paint viscosity. I know how much electricity we use in October, how the furnace cycles, how Lisa runs the dishwasher every third day whether it's full or not. $264 doesn't happen by accident. You're back. Lisa stood in the doorway, robe cinched tight, yawning like she'd just woken up. But her hair was too neat. Makeup traces around her eyes she hadn't quite removed. Not a question, not excitement, just acknowledgement. I folded the bill, slid it into my back pocket, said nothing. Morning light filled the kitchen while I drank my coffee alone. Lisa left for work at 7:15, same as always, her Honda backing down the driveway. I watched from the window, something nagging at the edge of my vision. The car looked fine, normal, but my eye caught it. A disruption in the surface. Driver's side rear quarter panel. I finished my coffee slowly, walked outside in my socks, dew soaking through the cotton until my feet went numb. Crouched down on the wet concrete, knees popping. There it was. A scrape. Maybe 8 inches long, with paint transfer. Not parking lot concrete, wrong texture, wrong color. Another vehicle. I ran my finger along it without touching, reading the damage like Braille. Blue-gray, pearl finish, 3-stage, expensive. The cold seeped through my jeans. I stayed crouched there for maybe 2 minutes, turning the color over in my mind. I've mixed 10,000 colors in 9 years. I remember them all. This one was singing to me, trying to tell me its name. Nardo Gray, pearl additive, proprietary mix. I stood up slowly, knees aching. I mixed that exact color 6 weeks ago. For a client's Audi RS5. Precision Collision Center smells like reducer and Bondo dust, and the particular brand of coffee Gary Novotny buys in bulk from Costco. I clocked in at 6:58 a.m., 2 minutes early like always. Hector was already in Bay 3, wet sanding a Camaro door, his radio playing that Spanish station he likes. "Toledo treat you right?" he called out. I nodded, kept walking. The work order from 6 weeks ago was right where I filed it. I pulled it out, hands steady, reading the details I already knew by heart. 2022 Audi RS5, Nardo Gray with proprietary pearl additive, custom mix, $847 per quart because the client wanted it perfect, wanted it to match the factory exactly, and factory exact costs money. I photographed the formula myself, stored it in the shop's database. Nobody else in Sandusky mixes this color. Hell, nobody else in Northern Ohio mixes this color. It's my formula, my work. I took pictures of the work order with my phone, emailed them to myself, deleted the photos from my camera roll. The client's name stared up at me from the paperwork. I needed to think. Lunch break. I sat in the spray booth with my mask off, eating a ham sandwich in the filtered silence. The booth is my diving bell. Pressurized, isolated, safe. Sound doesn't penetrate here, neither does bullshit. When I'm in the booth, I'm underwater, and the world above can't reach me. I pulled out my phone, opened the calculator. Lisa was at her mother's 3 times last month. Brenda lives 40 minutes away in Norwalk, and Lisa always complains about the drive. But 3 visits in 1 month? That's new. I was in Toledo for 6 days. The utility spike covers exactly that period. Space heaters. Someone running space heaters because they weren't supposed to be there. Couldn't adjust the thermostat without leaving a digital trail on the smart home app. Someone who gets cold easily. Someone who isn't me. I chewed my sandwich slowly, tasting nothing. That evening, I requested the itemized utility statement online. 3 to 5 business days. I sat in the garage, supposedly organizing my tools, actually creating a timeline in a small notebook I bought at the gas station on my way home. Dates Lisa claimed to visit her mother. Dates I traveled for work. The scrape appeared sometime in the last 6 days. Her car was clean when I left. I remember because I noticed a water spot on the hood and almost mentioned it. Almost. I wrote down the paint code. LY7C modified with Pearl Additive 7. My handwriting is small, precise, mechanical, like the work orders I fill out every day. Jack, dinner's ready. Lisa's voice from the kitchen. Warm, normal. The voice of a woman who hasn't done anything wrong. I closed the notebook, slid it behind the toolbox underneath the socket set I never use. Evidence. The word surfaced unbidden, and I sat with it for a moment, turned it over like a paint chip under fluorescent light. I'm gathering evidence. 3 days passed. I watched without watching. Lisa's phone buzzed at odd hours. She silenced it quickly, always with an excuse ready before I could ask. Mom's group chat is crazy today. Work scheduling drama. The new hygienist doesn't know how to use the calendar app. I noted the times in my notebook. 9:47 p.m., 11:23 p.m., 6:15 a.m. Her mother has been dead for 2 years. Brenda Kovac, my mother, not hers. Lisa's mother passed in 2022, before we even got married. Ovarian cancer. Lisa cried for 3 days straight, and I held her, and I thought, this is what marriage is. Being there when it hurts. I never mentioned the slip, just filed it away with everything else. At the shop, I worked on a Mustang fender, laying down clear coat in perfect overlapping passes. The gun moved in my hand like it was part of me. Smooth, consistent, no hesitation. Hector walked by, watched for a minute. You're in the zone, brother. Haven't seen you this locked in since the Corvette restoration. I nodded, kept spraying. I'm in the zone. I'm in the diving bell. The pressure is building, but I'm breathing steady. The itemized statement arrived on a Thursday. I opened it in my truck during lunch. Engine off, windows up, Gary's coffee going cold in the cup holder. The electricity spikes aligned perfectly with my absences. Not close, not approximately. Perfectly. October 3rd through 8th, I was in Columbus for a fleet job. Electricity usage, 47 kilowatt hours daily average, up from the usual 28. October 14th through 19th, Toledo. Usage, 51 kilowatt hours daily. Someone was living in my house. Running the space heater in the bedroom. Lisa always complained I kept it too cold, always burrowed under 3 blankets while I slept on top of the covers. Watching my television, cooking on my stove, sleeping in my bed. I sat with this knowledge for 17 minutes, watched the timestamp on my dashboard clock change. 12:34, 12:35, 12:36. I didn't feel rage. I waited for it, expected it, but it never came. What I felt was colder, something that settled into my bones like primer into bare metal. Preparation, foundation, the layer everything else gets built on. I folded the statement, put it in my glove box, went back to work. That night I lay awake while Lisa slept. Her breathing was even, peaceful. The sleep of someone with nothing on her conscience. I studied the ceiling, running calculations. The paint transfer. Nardo gray, proprietary pearl, my formula. The utility bills. Perfect alignment with my work trips. The phone buzzing at midnight. Her dead mother's group chat. I handled the insurance claim myself, I remembered suddenly. Last spring, Lisa rear-ended someone in the grocery store parking lot. Minor damage, barely worth filing. But she insisted. Said the other driver was making noise about neck pain. Wanted everything documented. The adjuster came to our house. I was home that day, a Saturday, and I answered the door. Young guy. Soft hands. Pressed shirt. The kind of man who's never had grease under his fingernails. Never breathed reducer fumes until his head spun. Lisa came downstairs while he was taking photos of her bumper. I watched them talk. She laughed at something he said. Touched his arm. I didn't think anything of it. People laugh. People touch arms. That's what normal people do. The adjuster's name. What was his name? I got out of bed carefully, not disturbing Lisa. Found the old insurance paperwork in the filing cabinet in the spare room. Flipped through pages until I found the claim documentation. Derek Vance. Midwest Mutual Insurance. I stared at the name for a long time. Derek Vance has been heating my house, sleeping in my bed, scraping his Audi against my wife's Honda in my driveway, probably backing out in a hurry when I came home earlier than expected. I put the paperwork back, went to the kitchen, poured myself 2 fingers of the bourbon I saved for special occasions. The paint transfer matches the exact custom color I mixed for a client 6 weeks ago. The insurance adjuster who handled Lisa's claim. Down to bare metal. That's where you see what something's really made of. I finished the bourbon, rinsed the glass, went back to bed. Lisa murmured something in her sleep, shifted closer to me. Her hand found my arm in the dark. I lay there until morning, breathing steady, planning my next move. Monday morning, 6:47 a.m., October 16th. I pulled into Precision Collision Center before the sun cleared the tree line. The parking lot was empty, just my truck and the dumpster shadow stretching across cracked asphalt. I liked it this way. The quiet before the chaos. The shop to myself. I clocked in, pulled on my coveralls, and started prepping a Chevy Silverado for primer. My movements were mechanical. Mask the trim, tape the edges, sand the panels with 320 grit until the surface felt like silk under my fingertips. The shop smelled like reducer and the coffee I hadn't made yet. Everything normal. Everything routine. Except I'd slept maybe 3 hours. Maybe 4. The paint transfer on Lisa's fender kept playing behind my eyes like a film loop. Nardo gray with that proprietary pearl additive. I mixed that color myself for Marcus Webb's RS5 back in August. $800 a quart. Custom job. The kind of work that puts food on the table and keeps the lights on. The kind of work that apparently puts another man in my bed. When Hector rolled in at 7, I already had the Silverado masked and ready. He stood in the bay doorway, coffee in hand, watching me work. "You're here early," he said. I shrugged. Couldn't sleep. He didn't push. Hector never pushed. That's why I trusted him. 23 years in the trade, he'd seen everything. Divorces, bankruptcies, guys who showed up drunk, and guys who didn't show up at all. He just nodded and went to his station. I kept sanding. The surface looked normal. Underneath, I was already diving deep. By Wednesday, I'd sanded the same door panel 3 times. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that constant hum that usually faded into background noise. Today, it felt like a drill in my skull. I ran my palm across the metal, feeling for imperfections only I could detect. There, a ripple, barely perceptible. I grabbed the block again. Hector set a cup of gas station coffee on my workbench. I hadn't heard him approach. "Primer hides nothing," he said quietly. "Remember that." I looked up. His eyes held something. Not pity, but recognition. The look of a man who's been underwater before. Who knows what drowning feels like and came back up anyway. I nodded once. He walked away. The coffee grew cold. I kept sanding. Thursday night, Lisa worked late at the dental office. Or said she did. I didn't check anymore. Didn't need to. I sat at the kitchen table with 18 months of joint bank statements spread before me like evidence at a crime scene. The house was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and the occasional creak of the foundation settling. October wind rattled the windows. My highlighter moved methodically. Yellow for cash withdrawals I didn't make. $200 on March 14th. I was in Cleveland that week. $350 on May 2nd. Toledo job, 3 days. $500 on a Tuesday in July when I was doing overtime at the shop. The yellow marks accumulated like bruises on the page. I counted them twice to be sure. $4,200 in unexplained cash over 14 months. Almost $300 a month, siphoned off while I was working 60-hour weeks to build something. I photographed each page with my phone, timestamp enabled. Made sure the dates were visible. Made sure everything was documented. My jaw was tight. My hands didn't shake. I filed everything back exactly as I found it. Same order, same creases. She'd never know I looked. Friday, October 19th. Lisa went to shower at 9:15 p.m. I'd been tracking her routine for a week. 12 minutes, give or take. Always 12 minutes. I waited until I heard the water running, then moved. Her desk drawer wasn't locked. Why would it be? She never expected me to look. I was just the guy who painted cars and paid bills. The ATM with calloused hands. The life insurance policy sat in a manila folder labeled Important Docs in her neat handwriting. I pulled it out, flipped to the coverage page. My breath caught. $500,000. Increased 8 months ago. I kept reading. $1.2 million. Increased 5 months ago. My signature on the amendment forms. Both of them. But I never signed anything. I would have remembered signing away my own life. The forgery was good, professional even, but not perfect. The J looped wrong, curved left instead of right. I'd been signing my name the same way since I was 12 years old. Whoever did this didn't know that. Dangerous occupation, writer, checked. Chemical exposure, checked. Fire risk, checked. I photographed everything. The policy, the amendments, the forged signatures. The writer documentation that basically said my job was a death sentence waiting to happen. The shower stopped. I was gone in 90 seconds. Back in the living room, TV on, beer in hand. Just another Friday night. Lisa came out in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. "What are you watching?" "Nothing," I said. "Just noise." She smiled. The kind of smile that used to make me feel lucky. Now it made my stomach turn. "I'm exhausted," she said. "Early shift tomorrow." "Get some rest." She kissed my forehead on her way to bed. I could smell her shampoo. The same shampoo she'd used for 4 years. The same woman I'd married. Except she wasn't. Not anymore. The following week I spent more time in the spray booth than necessary. The respirator mask made my breathing loud, rhythmic, almost meditative. In through the filters, out through the exhaust. The booth's pressure system created that submarine silence, negative pressure keeping contaminants out, keeping me sealed in. A diving bell. That's what it felt like. Descending into deep water where the world above couldn't reach me. Through the booth's window, I watched the shop continue. Hector working on a Honda Accord, methodical as always. Gary Novotny doing paperwork in the office, phone pressed to his ear. Normal day. Normal operations. But I was in the bell now. Looking up at the surface where Lisa and Derek swam like sharks, circling, waiting. Unaware they were being watched from below. I applied another coat of clear on a Mustang fender. Watched for ripples in the reflection. There were none. Perfect application. Perfect coverage. I let it cure. Built my case the same way, layer by layer. October 24th. 10 days after finding the paint transfer. Maureen Thatch's office at Thatch and Brennan Family Law smelled like leather and old paper. The kind of smell that said, serious business happens here. She was in her 50s, practical, with reading glasses on a chain and the kind of handshake that meant she didn't waste time. I slid my folder across her desk. Photographs. Bank statements. the forged signatures, the insurance documentation. She reviewed everything without expression, page by page, photograph by photograph. Her reading glasses caught the light. Finally, she looked up. "This isn't just divorce material," she said. "This is insurance fraud. Potentially conspiracy to commit fraud." She paused, removed her glasses. "If whatever accident they're planning involves your workplace, Mr. Kovac, we're looking at attempted murder." The words hung in the air. Attempted murder. My wife. The woman I'd built a life with. What do I need to document? My voice was flat, steady, the voice I used when matching paint codes. She told me. I wrote everything down. I told Lisa I was taking another Toledo job. 3 days, good money. Custom restoration work for a collector. She barely looked up from her phone. "Drive safe," she said. I left Tuesday morning. But Tuesday night at 2 a.m., I was parked on Birchwood Lane, 4 houses down from my own house, engine off, windows cracked. The street was silent. Dead leaves skittered across asphalt like small animals fleeing. The cold seeped through my jacket. I didn't turn on the heat. Couldn't risk the engine noise. At 2:17 a.m., I saw it. A white Audi A4 pulling into my driveway. Derek Vance's car. The insurance adjuster with soft hands and a smile that probably worked on lonely wives. The bedroom light came on. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains. My curtains. My bedroom. My wife. At 2:34, the light went off. I photographed everything with timestamps. The car in the driveway, the dark windows, the minutes ticking by while another man slept in my bed. The Audi didn't leave until 6:15 a.m. I watched Derek walk to his car, casual, unhurried, like he owned the place, like he'd already won. I drove to a motel off the highway. Didn't sleep, just documented. Over the next week, I worked with the precision of a man matching paint codes. Phone records, calls to Derek's number, dozens of them, always when I was working. Late nights, early mornings, lunch breaks that lasted an hour. Utility bills, doubled usage during every single one of my absences. Space heaters running. Someone living in my house, heating my house, using my electricity while I was gone. The falsified insurance documentation Maureen's team identified. Forged signatures, backdated amendments. The whole paper trail of my planned death. 47 photographs. 6 audio recordings from the voice-activated recorder I'd placed in our bedroom. Each piece of evidence cataloged, backed up to cloud storage, copies given to Maureen. Layer by layer, letting each one cure before applying the next. The case built like a perfect paint job. No runs, no sags, no imperfections. November 1st. Maureen's forensic accountant found it. A savings account at First Regional Credit Union, opened 11 months ago. Lisa's name only. Balance, $28,500. I stared at the documentation in Maureen's office. Our joint savings had held $34,000. Now it held $5,500. She'd been siphoning for months. Small transfers that looked like normal spending. Grocery money, gas money, the slow bleed of a marriage dying. She was building an exit fund, Maureen said, or a widow's nest egg. The fluorescent lights hummed. I thought about the house we were going to buy. The baby we'd discussed. The future I'd been working toward while she planned my funeral. All of it was scaffolding for my own murder. What else do you need? My voice was quiet. Sunday evening, November 3rd. Lisa was at her mother's, or so she said. I found the family iPad on the kitchen counter, still logged into her messages. I almost didn't look. I had enough evidence. More than enough. Maureen said we could file tomorrow. But something pulled me. That same instinct that spots a ripple in clear coat from across the room. Derek's name in the message thread. I scrolled. My blood went cold. Derek's text, sent 3 days ago. When is his next overnight? The Toledo jobs are perfect. No witnesses at the shop if something goes wrong with the ventilation. Lisa's reply. He mentioned another one next month. Gary never checks the booth maintenance logs. I read it twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. Something goes wrong with the ventilation. They were planning to kill me in my own spray booth. Make it look like an accident, chemical exposure, equipment failure, maybe a fire. The $1.2 million policy pays out. Lisa plays the grieving widow. Derek handles the claim through Midwest Mutual. Clean. Professional. I screenshotted everything. My hands finally shook. Just once. I sat in my truck in the Precision Collision parking lot. Engine off, 11 p.m. The shop was dark. The screenshot glowed on my phone. Something goes wrong with the ventilation. I stared at the booth through the shop windows. I'd spent thousands of hours in there. The filtered air, the submarine silence, the place where I did my best work, where the world couldn't reach me. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. Now it was meant to be my coffin. Tuesday night, 11:47 p.m. I counted the ceiling fan clicks. 47 since Lisa's breathing went slow and even. The fan had a wobble, click on every third rotation, like a metronome counting down to something I couldn't name yet. 48. I matched my breathing to hers. In through the nose, out through the mouth, chest rising and falling in that rhythm married people sync up without meaning to. 4 years of sharing a bed teaches your body things your brain never agreed to. 49. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen down. She never used to do that. Used to leave it face up, didn't care if I saw the notifications. Now it was always face down, always on silent, always within arm's reach like a weapon she might need. I kept my face slack, relaxed, sleeping. I've been practicing this for 6 nights now. Lying next to the woman who wanted me dead. Not divorced, not separated. Dead. Because dead pays $1.2 million and divorce pays lawyers. 50. The sheets smelled like fabric softener. The expensive kind she started buying 3 months ago. I used to think she was treating herself. Now I knew she was erasing traces. Derek's cologne. Derek's sweat. Derek's presence in my bed while I worked doubles in Toledo, mixing custom colors for clients who'd never know their paint jobs funded my own funeral. 51. Lisa shifted, mumbled something. I didn't move. Didn't breathe different. Just counted. 52. Wednesday morning. Precision Collision Center, 7:43 a.m. The mixing room smelled like reducer and possibility. I had a 69 Mustang restoration waiting. Client wanted a period-correct Acapulco blue, 3-stage with the original metallic flake pattern. The kind of job that used to make me forget everything else existed. My hand trembled over the scale. Too much pearl. The ratio was off by 0.3 grams, enough to shift the entire color toward purple in direct sunlight. I stared at the ruined batch. $800 of material. Garbage now. I dumped it and started over. You look like a man carrying a transmission on his back, brother. Hector Dominguez stood 2 bays down, spray gun lowered, watching me with those steady brown eyes that had seen 30 years of bodywork, and probably twice that in human wreckage. I almost broke. The words piled up behind my teeth like cars in a wreck. Lisa's trying to kill me. Her and that insurance adjuster. They've got it planned out. Spray booth malfunction, chemical fire, something that looks like an accident. I found the notes in her nightstand. I've got recordings. I've got photographs. I swallowed it. Didn't sleep. I measured the base coat again, hands steadier now. We're going through something. Hector nodded slow, didn't push. That was the thing about guys who'd been doing this work for decades. They understood that some damage you can't see until the primer goes on. I'm here when you're ready. He picked up his gun, went back to the Camaro he was prepping. Coffee's fresh. Real coffee. Not that break room garbage. Thanks, Hector. He grunted, squeezed the trigger. The spray booth filled with that familiar hiss, and I went back to mixing Acapulco blue like my wife wasn't planning my murder. Lunch break. My truck, windows up, engine off. I reread the text thread for the 4th time. The family iPad. She'd forgotten to log out, and now I had screenshots of every message going back 3 months. Derek, 5 days ago. He's getting suspicious. We need to move the timeline up. Lisa, clinical as a dental chart. 2 more weeks. The policy needs 90 days since the last increase or they'll investigate. I did the math again. The second increase was 5 months ago, October 2nd, according to the documentation I'd photographed in her desk drawer. Well past the 90-day window. They were clear. The only thing keeping me alive was their caution. I screenshotted everything again. Backup number 4. One on my phone, one on a flash drive in my locker, one in a safety deposit box I'd opened last week, one emailed to an address only I knew existed. My hands were steady now. The shaking stopped when the math started. I scrolled back further. August 23rd. Lisa to Derek. The beneficiary change went through. $1.2 million. That's enough to disappear. Derek's response. We're not disappearing. We're starting over. Properly. After the investigation closes, after the payout, after enough time passes that no one connects us. They'd thought of everything. Timeline, alibis. The slow transfer of money from our joint savings to the hidden account at First Regional. The forged signature on the policy amendments. The dangerous occupation rider that flagged my job as high risk. Everything except me finding that paint transfer on Lisa's fender. Nardo gray with the proprietary pearl additive. The exact custom color I'd mixed for Marcus Webb's RS5. Details are the job. Wednesday night, 8:15 p.m. Lisa stood at the kitchen island, chopping vegetables for a stir-fry she'd never finish. She'd been making elaborate dinners lately, the kind that required her to stay in the kitchen, phone in hand, while I sat in the living room pretending to watch TV. Gary called, I said, testing. Wants me for a solo overnight this weekend. Rush job. She didn't look up from the cutting board. That's great, babe. The overtime will help. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It hadn't in months, but now I saw why. Every night I was at the shop was another night she could plan with Derek. Another night closer to the accident. Sunday night, I added. Might be late. You know how those custom jobs go. I know. She scraped the vegetables into a pan. Oil sizzled. I'll have dinner ready when you get home Monday. Something nice. Something nice. Like a memorial service. Like a life insurance payout. Like starting over with Derek while I cooled in a drawer at the county morgue. Thanks, Lisa. I packed a bag that night. She kissed my cheek at the door. Her lips were cold. Thursday, 2:17 a.m. I wasn't at the shop. I was parked 3 blocks from 1847 Birchwood Lane, watching my own house through the binoculars I'd bought at the sporting goods store last week. Cash transaction. No receipt. Derek's white Audi A4 pulled into the driveway at 2:17 exactly. The garage door opened. Lisa had programmed him a code. My code. The one I'd set up when we moved in, when I thought we were building something permanent. I photographed everything. The arrival. The garage door closing behind him. The kitchen light going on, then off. The bedroom window, where the blinds tilted shut at 2:24. My hands were steady. My chest was hollow. I was documenting my own murder being planned in my own bed. November had turned the night bitter. I didn't turn on the heat. The discomfort kept me sharp, kept me present, kept me from doing something stupid like walking up to that door and confronting them both with nothing but rage and righteousness. Rage doesn't hold up in court. Evidence does. 43 photos by dawn. The Audi left at 5:47 a.m., Derek checking his mirrors twice before backing out. Careful, methodical. The kind of man who plans things properly. So was I. Thursday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Thatch and Brennan Family Law. Maureen Thatch's office smelled like old paper and new leather. She'd reviewed everything. The audio recordings, the photographs, the insurance documents, Derek's handwritten notes about the spray booth malfunction that I'd found in Lisa's nightstand. Her face was granite. This isn't just divorce material, Mr. Kovac. She set down the folder, removed her reading glasses. This is attempted murder conspiracy. Have you contacted police? I shook my head. Not yet. I need the financial documentation locked down first. If they get warning, the money disappears. The $28,500 she's been siphoning, that's my money too. Our money. I want it frozen before she can move it offshore or cash it out. Maureen studied me the way I studied paint jobs, looking for flaws, for inconsistencies, for anything that didn't match. You're thinking 3 moves ahead. I almost smiled. I match paint for a living. Details are the job. She nodded slowly, made a note. I'll have the forensic accountant prioritize the asset trace. We can have emergency motions ready by Friday if we push. But Mr. Kovac, she leaned forward, you need to involve law enforcement. What you're describing isn't just fraud. It's conspiracy to commit murder. If something happens to you before we get this in front of a judge, nothing's going to happen to me. You can't know that. I know my shop. I know my spray booth. I know every ventilation system, every chemical storage protocol, every fire suppression mechanism in that building. I met her eyes. Whatever they're planning, I'll see it coming. That's the job. Friday morning, 9:15 a.m. Police station, interview room. Detective Carla Odom sat across from me, manila folder open between us. She'd listened to the recordings twice. Derek's voice, planning the ventilation failure. Lisa's voice, discussing the insurance payout timeline. The detective's pen hadn't moved in 4 minutes. The handwritten notes. She tapped the photograph I'd provided. Where exactly did you find them? Lisa's nightstand, beneath her reading glasses case, in a small leather notebook. I'd photographed them in place before touching anything, then photographed them again with a ruler for scale. The handwriting matches samples I pulled from our household files. Grocery lists, birthday cards, notes she left on the fridge. Carla nodded slowly. You've got a prosecutor's instincts, Mr. Kovac. I shrugged. I've got a painter's instincts. Same thing. Layer by layer. No shortcuts. Shortcuts crack. She closed the folder, leaned back. Here's where we are. What you've brought me is substantial. Enough for a formal investigation, potentially enough for charges. But conspiracy cases take time. We need to verify the recordings weren't altered, authenticate the documents, interview witnesses. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. I don't have months. I pulled out my phone, showed her Lisa's text from that morning. She's setting up a solo overnight job for Sunday. A job that doesn't exist. I called my boss. He never scheduled anything. Carla's expression shifted. They've moved up the timeline. 48 hours, maybe less. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached for her desk phone. Let me make some calls. Friday afternoon, 4:45 p.m. Maureen's forensic accountant had traced everything. I sat in her conference room, staring at bank statements spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. Which, I guess, they were. $28,500 moved from our joint savings to a hidden account at First Regional Credit Union. Opened in Lisa's maiden name, Lisa Brennan. The account she'd had before we got married, the one she'd told me she closed. Each withdrawal dated during my out-of-town jobs. October 3rd, Toledo, $2,400. October 19th, Cleveland, $3,200. October 24th, Columbus, $4,100. Every time I was working doubles to build our future, she was dismantling it. Every overtime shift, every weekend job, every night I spent in a motel room eating gas station sandwiches and missing her. She was moving our money into an account I didn't know existed. $34,000 we'd saved together. 4 years of living below our means, driving used cars, skipping vacations. 4 years of me telling myself it would be worth it someday. I was paying for my own coffin, buying the nails one overtime shift at a time. The paperwork blurred. I blinked it clear. Mr. Kovac? Maureen's voice, gentle. Do you need a minute? No. I straightened the statements into a neat stack. I need the divorce papers ready by Sunday, and I need those accounts frozen before she can touch them. We can file emergency motions first thing Monday. Monday's too late. Maureen exchanged a look with her paralegal. What exactly are you planning? I told her. Friday night, 9:47 p.m. My phone buzzed. Lisa's text. Gary called. He needs you for that solo job Sunday night. The Hendricks restoration. Said you're the only one he trusts with the custom blend. My blood went cold. I called Gary Novotny directly. 3 rings. Hey boss, Lisa said you called about a Sunday job? Gary sounded confused. I didn't call anyone, Jack. Shop's closed Sunday. We talked about this. I'm taking my grandkids to the lake. Right. My voice stayed level. Must have been a miscommunication. Sorry to bother you. Everything okay? Everything's fine. See you Monday. I hung up. They'd moved up the timeline. Sunday night, alone in the shop. The accident was in 48 hours. I sat in my truck in the Precision Collision parking lot, engine off, staring at my phone. The text glowed in the darkness. The Hendricks restoration. There was no Hendricks restoration. There was no Sunday job. There was only Lisa, setting the stage for my death, probably sitting next to Derek right now as they finalize the details. Spray booth malfunction, chemical fire, ventilation failure, take your pick. I scrolled through my camera roll. 47 photographs, 6 audio recordings, copies of falsified insurance documentation, bank statements showing $28,500 in a hidden account. Enough evidence to bury them both. But evidence doesn't matter if you're dead. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Maureen Thatch's office. Emergency meeting. Me, Maureen, Detective Carla Odom around a conference table. Coffee getting cold. Nobody drinking. They're setting up the scene, Carla explained, her voice flat and professional. Lisa creates the alibi. She thinks you're working. Derek handles the incident. Based on his notes, we're looking at a staged spray booth malfunction. Could be the ventilation system. Could be the chemical storage. Could be something with the fire suppression. He's an insurance adjuster, I said. He knows exactly what kind of accident looks plausible. What kind of investigation won't dig too deep. Maureen was already drafting emergency motions. We can have restraining orders by Monday morning. Freeze the accounts. File for divorce. Get you police protection. Monday's too late. I leaned forward. The job is Sunday night. If I don't show up, they'll know something's wrong. They'll move the money, destroy evidence, lawyer up. I lose everything. If you do show up, you might lose your life. I'm not showing up to the shop. I looked between them. I'm showing up to my house, Sunday night, while they think I'm at Precision Collision, waiting to die in a spray booth fire. Carla's eyebrows rose. You want to confront them? I want to serve them. Divorce papers, restraining order, criminal complaint, all of it, at once, while they're together, while they think they've won. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. I've got copies of everything. The photographs, the recordings, the insurance documents. I want them to see exactly how much I know before the police arrive. Maureen and Carla exchanged looks. That's not standard procedure, Carla said slowly. Neither is planning your husband's murder. Silence. The coffee continued to cool. Finally, Carla nodded. I can have officers staged nearby. You go in, serve the papers, we move in for the arrest. But Mr. Kovac, she held my gaze. If anything goes wrong, if either of them has a weapon, if the situation escalates, it won't. I thought about the spray booth, the pressurized silence, the way the world goes muffled when you're inside, focused on nothing but the work. I've been preparing for this for 12 days, layer by layer. No shortcuts. Saturday, 11:47 p.m. The shop was dark, except for the spray booth's fluorescent lights, humming their industrial lullaby. I stood inside the booth, respirator hanging around my neck, staring at my reflection in the unpainted metal of a car door. A '72 Chevelle, stripped down for restoration. Bare metal. No primer, no paint, no clear coat. Just raw steel, waiting to become something new. That's what I'd be when this was over. No marriage, no savings, no future I'd planned. Lisa would be arrested, probably. Derek, too. The house would have to be sold. I couldn't sleep there anymore. Couldn't look at the bedroom without seeing the Audi in the driveway at 2 a.m. Couldn't walk into the kitchen without smelling fabric softener and betrayal. But bare metal can be rebuilt. I ran my hand over the Chevelle's door. Cold steel, rough with age, pitted in places where the rust had been ground away. Someone had neglected this car for decades. Let it sit in a barn, let the elements eat at it, let it become something shameful and forgotten. Now it was here, in my booth, ready to be made new. I picked up the sanding block, started working the surface, feeling for imperfections, smoothing the metal until it was ready for primer. The rhythm was automatic, back and forth, checking with my fingertips, sanding again. This was what I knew. This was what I was. Down to bare metal. That's where you see what something's really made of. Sunday, 6:14 a.m. My phone buzzed. Lisa's text. "Don't forget tonight's job. I'll have dinner ready when you get home tomorrow. Love you." I read it 3 times. Love you. From the woman planning my death. I opened my camera roll one more time. 47 photographs, 6 audio recordings, copies of falsified insurance documents, bank statements showing $28,500 in a hidden account. Derek's handwritten notes about the spray booth malfunction. Text messages discussing the timeline, the payout, the new life they'd build on my grave. Maureen had the divorce papers ready. Carla had officers standing by. In 14 hours, I was supposed to walk into my own murder scene. Instead, I was going to walk into my living room and serve them papers that would leave them financially gutted, criminally exposed, completely destroyed. The hunter becomes the hunted. I set down the phone, picked up my coffee, looked out the window at the gray November sky, the color of primer, the color of bare metal, the color of starting over. Lisa didn't know how to sand down wreckage and rebuild from nothing. I did. That was the job. That was what I was. And in 14 hours, she was going to learn exactly what that meant. Friday, November 7th, 8:43 p.m. I sat in my truck, parked 3 blocks down from 1847 Birchwood Lane. The engine was off, ticking as it cooled in the November air. It was 34 degrees outside. I knew because I just checked the curing temperature specs for the waterborne primer we used at the shop. My brain was still doing that, latching onto numbers, specs, hard data, anything to keep from screaming. My breath fogged the windshield. I wiped it away with the sleeve of my Carhartt jacket. The streetlights hummed, casting that sickly sodium orange glow that distorts every color it touches. As a painter, I hate that light. You can't see the truth in it. I reached into my inside pocket. The manila folder was there. Thick, heavy. It felt like a lead plate against my ribs. 47 photographs. 6 audio transcripts. Bank records from First Regional Credit Union showing the $28,500 siphoned out of our joint savings. And the kicker, the forensic report on the metadata from the digital photos I'd taken of Derek Vance's handwritten notes. Spray booth malfunction. Wednesday. Ventilation failure. I checked my watch again. 8:44 p.m. Maureen Thatch had sent the text 4 minutes ago. Service completed. Delivery confirmed to opposing counsel. You have the green light. I didn't feel triumph. You know that feeling when you strip a car down to the frame and you find out the rust has eaten all the way through the structural rails? That's what I felt. The chassis of my life was rotted out. I was just here to scrap the parts. I opened the truck door. The cold hit me like a wet towel. I adjusted my collar and started walking. The neighborhood was quiet. Blue flicker of TVs in living room windows. The smell of someone burning wood in a fireplace. Normal lives. The kind of life I thought I was paying for with every 60-hour week, every overtime shift, every lungful of chemical dust. I turned into my driveway. There it was. The Audi. Not Derek Vance's usual white A4. He must have been driving a loaner while his was in the shop, maybe getting that fender fixed again. This one was Nardo gray. I stopped for a second, just looking at it under the motion sensor floodlight I'd installed last year. Nardo gray, paint code LY7C. But this wasn't factory. I leaned in close. The pearl additive. I could see the microscopic flecks of blue mica suspended in the clear coat. I mixed this. I mixed this paint 6 weeks ago. I remembered the weight of the can in my hand. I remembered thinking about the customer. Some guy named Derek who wanted a custom finish. I had literally painted the getaway car for the man sleeping with my wife. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. I walked to the front door. I had my keys in my hand, the brass cold against my skin. I didn't stomp. I didn't slam anything. I moved the way I move in the booth. Deliberate, smooth, minimizing turbulence. I slid the key into the deadbolt. I'd oiled the tumblers 3 weeks ago with graphite lubricant. It turned without a sound. I stepped into the foyer. The house smelled like Thai basil and coconut milk. Takeout. Lisa's favorite. The mail was piled on the console table. A lipstick-stained water glass sat on a coaster. My coaster. I heard them upstairs. It wasn't sex. It was the sound of drawers sliding open on metal runners, the thump of something heavy being moved, papers shuffling. It has to be here, a male voice said, soft, tenor range, not the voice of a guy who shouts over air compressors all day. Keep looking, Lisa's voice, tight, anxious. He keeps a spare set for the shop in the sock drawer. I've seen them. I closed the front door. The latch clicked. The noise upstairs stopped instantly. I didn't call out. I just walked to the stairs. My Red Wing boots are heavy, but I know where the squeaky boards are. I skipped the third step, stepped light on the landing. I walked up those stairs like a ghost. The bedroom door was open. They were standing by my dresser. My sock drawer was pulled out, dumped onto the floor. Black and gray cotton balls scattered everywhere. Derek Vance was holding a shoebox, the one where I keep the warranty papers for my spray guns. He was wearing a polo shirt tucked into khakis. He looked soft. That's the only word for it. His hands, rifling through my things, looked like they'd never held anything rougher than a steering wheel. Lisa was by the closet. She was wearing the silk robe I bought her for our 4th anniversary. The blue one. She froze when she saw me in the doorway. Her face did this thing. I watched it happen in slow motion. First, pure terror. Her eyes went wide, pupils dilated. Then, the calculation kick-started. She smoothed her hair. She took a breath. She put on the mask. "Jack," she said. Her voice went up an octave, the wounded bird tone. You're home early. I was just..." She looked at Derek. Derek straightened up, puffing out his chest. He tried to look authoritative. It was pathetic. "Now look, buddy," Derek said, taking a step toward me. "This isn't what it looks like. We were just looking for the key to the back door of Precision Collision," I interrupted. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat. Dead. Like a recorded announcement. "The one that bypasses the alarm? Because you need access for Wednesday night?" The color drained out of Derek's face so fast, it was like someone pulled a drain plug. Lisa gripped the closet door handle. "Jack, what are you talking about? You're scaring me." "Wednesday," I said, stepping into the room. I didn't look at her. I looked at him. The plan was a ventilation failure, or maybe a chemical fire. You were debating the timeline on the drive over here. I have the audio from the recorder under the passenger seat of the Honda. Derek's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I pulled the manila folder from my jacket. I tossed it onto the unmade bed. It landed with a heavy thud between them. "That's your copy," I said. "Maureen Thatch just served the originals to your attorney, Lisa. And Derek, your employer, Midwest Mutual, got a very interesting packet via courier this morning. Attention. Fraud Investigation Unit." Derek looked at the folder like it was a bomb. He reached out, his hand shaking, actually shaking, and flipped it open. The first photo was the one I took of the two of them at the diner in Toledo when I was supposed to be working. The second was the copy of the life insurance policy amendment, the one where my signature looks just a little bit off. "You increased the policy to $1.2 million, I said to Lisa. 8 months ago. Double indemnity for accidental death at the workplace. Specifically, death by fire or chemical asphyxiation." "Jack, stop," Lisa whispered. She was crying now, but it wasn't sad crying. It was panic crying. We weren't. It was just talk. It was a fantasy. We never. I have Derek's notes, I said. Handwritten. On Midwest Mutual stationery. Disable intake fan B. Block exhaust vent C. Trigger spark in mixing room. That's not a fantasy, Lisa. That's a schematic. I looked at Derek. He was reading the document I'd prepared with the help of the forensic accountant. You documented my unsafe work practices in 3 separate reports, I said to him. Building a paper trail so the insurance company wouldn't pay out to me if I got hurt. But they would pay out to the beneficiary if I died due to negligence. Very smart. Very white collar. Derek looked up. His eyes were wet. Mr. Kovac, listen. I can explain. The pressure. Lisa said you were abusive. She said you were dangerous. I laughed. It was a dry, cracking sound. Abusive? I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for this house. I paid off her student loans. I haven't taken a vacation in 4 years. I turned to Lisa. Did you tell him about the $28,000 you stole from the savings account? The money sitting in First Regional Credit Union under your maiden name? Lisa flinched. That was my money. I earned that. It was a joint account, I said. And in the state of Ohio, siphoning marital assets while plotting to murder your spouse is, well, let's just say Maureen Thatch is having a field day with the filing. You can't prove any of this, Lisa hissed. The mask was gone now. Her face was twisted, ugly. It's illegal to record people without consent. Not in your own home, I said. And not when the recording captures the planning of a felony. Detective Carla Odom at the Sandusky PD found it very admissible. She's building the conspiracy case right now. She's got the text logs, the location data, the paint samples from the fender. Everything. Derek dropped the folder. Police? He squeaked. Conspiracy to commit murder. Insurance fraud. Grand larceny. I ticked them off on my fingers. My hands were steady. Rock steady. You're done, Derek. You'll never work in insurance again. You'll be lucky if you don't do 10 years. Derek looked at Lisa, then at the door. I have to go. You do that, I said. Detective Odom said she'd be picking you up at your apartment later, but maybe you can savor the trip and turn yourself in. Derek bolted. He didn't even look at Lisa. He ran past me, down the stairs. I heard the front door slam, then the Audi roar to life. Lisa stood there, alone. She looked at me, and for a second, I saw the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew. Jack, she said softly. She took a step forward, reaching out a hand. Honey, please, we can fix this. I was confused. He manipulated me. You know how I get when I'm lonely. You were always gone. I just wanted you to come home. I looked at her hand, manicured, soft, a ring on her finger that I paid for with 3 months of overtime. I am home, I said, and I'm evicting you. What? The house is in my name. Bought it before we married. You have 72 hours to vacate. The locks get changed on Monday. You can't do that, she screamed. I'm your wife. You're a liability, I said, and I'm cutting my losses. I turned around. I didn't want to look at her anymore. It hurt too much. Not the anger. The anger was useful. It was the waste. The sheer, absolute waste of time and love. Jack! She screamed after me. Jack, don't you walk away from me! You're nothing without me! You're just a grease monkey with a spray gun. I paused at the top of the stairs. I didn't turn back. I'm a master painter, I said quietly, and I know how to prep a surface. You never did. I walked down the stairs. Her screaming followed me, muffled by the walls, fading as I reached the door. I walked out into the night. The cold felt good now. It felt clean. I got into my truck. My hands were shaking a little now. The adrenaline dump. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I took a deep breath, counting to 4 on the inhale, 4 on the hold, 4 on the exhale. I started the engine. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to the only place that made sense. Precision Collision Center was dark, except for the light in the main office. I saw a silhouette in the window. I unlocked the side door, using the key Derek and Lisa never found. Hector Dominguez was sitting at the break room table, a stack of invoices in front of him. He looked up when I walked in. He saw my face. He saw the way I was carrying myself, like a man who just walked away from a car crash. He didn't ask. He just got up, walked over to the coffee pot, and poured a fresh cup. Black. "Booth 3 is prepped," Hector said, sliding the mug across the table. "That's 70 Chevelle. Needs the final clear coat in the morning." I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. "Yeah, I know." "You staying here tonight?" Hector asked. "Yeah." Hector nodded. "I brought tamales. My wife made too many. They're in the fridge." "Thanks, Hector." "Get some sleep, Jefe." He clapped me on the shoulder, a heavy, solid grip, and walked out. I sat there in the silence of the shop. I could smell the faint chemical tang of reducer, the dusty smell of Bondo, the sharp scent of clean metal. It smelled like work. It smelled like truth. I slept on the cot in the storage room. It wasn't comfortable, but I slept like the dead. The next 4 months were a blur of legal motions and depositions. Maureen Thatch was a shark. She tore through their defense like 40 grit sandpaper. Lisa pleaded no contest to the fraud charges to avoid the conspiracy rap. She got probation and a massive restitution order, but her reputation was torched. Derek Vance wasn't so lucky. Midwest Mutual went after him with everything they had. He lost his license, his job, and was facing 18 months in state prison for the insurance scheme. The divorce was finalized in February. I kept the house, but I sold it a week later. I couldn't live there. Too many ghosts in the drywall. I took the equity from the house sales and the settlement money, and I bought into the shop. Gary Novotny was looking to retire in a few years, and he offered me 30% partnership. It was a Tuesday in March when the dust finally settled. I was in the booth. The new downdraft system was humming, a low, powerful vibration that I could feel in the soles of my boots. I was spraying the final clear on a 1969 Camaro, a complete restoration. We'd stripped it down to the frame, blasted away 40 years of rust and rot, and built it back up. I checked the pressure gauge on my gun. 28 psi. Perfect. I pulled the trigger. The clear coat atomized into a fine mist, laying down on the black base coat like liquid glass. I moved my arm in long, sweeping strokes. 50% overlap. Keep the wet edge. Don't stop. My mind was quiet. No voices, no text messages, no lies. I finished the quarter panel and stepped back. The reflection was flawless. No orange peel, no dust nibs, just a perfect, deep mirror finish. I saw myself in the reflection. I looked older. There were new lines around my eyes. I'd lost some weight. I looked like a man who had been through a fire. I was alone. I went home to an empty apartment. I ate dinner standing over the sink sometimes. I woke up at 3 a.m., reaching for a woman who wasn't there, and who had never really been there. The family I wanted, the kids, that was gone. That timeline had been erased. But looking at that fender, seeing the way the light hit the curve, it was real. I did this. I took a wreck, and I made it new. I unhooked the air hose. I pulled off my respirator. The smell of the clear coat was strong, sharp, and clean. I touched the scar on my forearm, down to bare metal. That's where you start. I turned off the booth lights, leaving only the safety lamps glowing. The car gleamed in the semi-darkness. I'm Jack Kovac. I fix things. And tomorrow, I've got a Mustang coming in that needs a full quarter panel replacement. I'll be ready.